going on? So I know it's been a while since I've been on the channel, and well, reason for that is because I've been working on doing my research on different things for plants and stuff like that, trying to grow my knowledge so that I can help to further educate you guys when you want to start doing your own house plants, or if you're already into house plants, to help you get a little bit more knowledge that's more up to date. I've also just haven't been on the channel for a while because I've been working on my mental health and just working a lot and stuff like that, and I just needed a recharge because I was worried too much about my YouTube channel and not focusing on other things that were getting in the way of it. So it's like I had to do a little bit of a break to this. So I'm glad to be back. So let's get to this video. Now, taking care of plants isn't hard, but it's also not super easy like people tend to think. There's a lot that goes into taking care of your house plants or any plants that you're trying to grow. One of those things is knowing how to tell when a plant is going to be dying on you, or knowing the signs of a decaying plant or something that's just going bad. So really it's easy to tell. So you're just looking at your plants, and as you saw here, there's like a bunch of dried up, curled up leaves. They're like yellow, brownish in color, and some of them are still on the plant, some of them laying on the soil. So you want to make sure you pick that kind of stuff out, because that's going to start to attract pests and fungal infections to your plant, and you don't want anything like that at your house plant, especially if you have as many as I do. Now, a lot of people don't know this, but plants need anywhere between 2 weeks to 3 months to acclimate to a new environment. So if you want to go get a new house plant, and let's say it's like a Monstera Peru or a Monstera Adansani or just a golden pothos plant, you really need to let that plant sit and get used to the environment that you're going to have it in long term before you try to repot it or do any major changes to it, just so that you don't put that plant in transplant shock or anything like that, because I've done that a few times and it can actually kill off the entire plant because sometimes it stretches it out so bad. So give your plant a little bit of time to get used to its new environment before you try to repot it or propagate. Now, you can propagate from it if it's too tall or leggy, but I wouldn't do very much of that because that's still going to stress the plant out and it's going to shock it. So just be cautious and watch what you do when you bring home a new plant. Now, a lot of people don't realize that when you bring home new house plants, some plants have multiple plants in them, like this alocasia I have here. This has 3 separate plants in it right now. But yeah, I want to repot this and get those separated, but as you can see, this plant's not looking its best. I just got this a couple weeks ago, so I need to let this acclimate and get used to this environment that it's in. And in the process of acclimation, your plants are probably going to lose a lot of leaves, but they're going to push out a lot of new ones as well. So just be patient, let your plant get used to where it's going to be. And just remember, do not repot right off the bat whenever you bring home a new plant. It also helps to keep a little bit more of a wet soil so that they don't dry out too bad, or that they don't dry out at all whenever they're acclimating, because you really want to try to leave them alone as much as possible. So if you use like a pot that doesn't have drainage and you have a plastic inner pot, that's a cash pot. So basically that's just going to help you bottom water, and it's going to help with keeping your soil or potting media on the wetter side so that you're not moving that plant around very often. Now this Monstera Adansonii here is doing really good. I haven't really watered this one yet, but I got this at the same time as the alocasia a couple weeks ago, and I've watered it once from the bottom by bottom watering air with that wick and grow thing. But this has several different plants in one pot, and that's what I'm explaining here. Is I'd love to separate this right now, but I'm just letting this plant get used to the environment that it's going to be in long term before I try to do anything with it, so I don't stress it out. Now that brings me to another point here. So when you bring some plants home, they are going to have very dry soil because some big box stores don't take care of their plants like they're supposed to, so they just let them grow and dry out and they end up being dead. And that's why a lot of plants do go on clearance, because they aren't looking the best, so the store's just trying to get rid of them. So you can sometimes go get a pot for anywhere between $2 to $3 depending on what it is. But that's, like I said, when that happens, you want to get a container, like a deli cup like this, pour water on the bottom, and set your pot in there. And just let it soak that up for a day or two, and that'll help the acclimation process, and it will also help increase the humidity around the plant immediately, especially if you use warm water, because the plants need that humidity in order to be able to get used to the environment, and especially if they're tropical plants like alocasia polys, monsteras, golden pothos, nerve plants, all kinds of stuff like that. So if you bring home a new plant and the potting soil is really dry or it's almost bone dry, you really want to make sure you water it as soon as you get it home so that you have a better chance of that plant surviving. Otherwise, if you wait another week, you might end up coming home to a dead plant. I've had it happen quite a few times, and that's not the best thing, especially if you let plant. So just remember, bring home a new plant, check the soil level, how wet the soil is. If it's dry, water it. If it's not, just leave it be and let it dry out a little bit longer, and just see what you need to do a week from then. Now, if you've got as many plants as I do, then chances are you're going to be watering a lot of plants at the same time. To make that happen and make that easier for you, you want to get some kind of big container that you can put a bunch of pots in at the same time. Yeah, we got that down here. Get all this potting media out of the way. I've got this filled up with potting media right now that I just mixed the other night, but basically you want to get a container like this, and you want to make sure it's deep enough to put pots in so that the water doesn't overflow when you try to water things. And this just goes hand in hand with my bottom watering video a while back that I made. So you just put your plants in there, put as many as you can in there, pour that warm water in there. Sometimes you can add nutrients to them if you need to feed them, and just let them soak up for an hour, and you're good to go with watering your plants. Now, I've got about 200 total house plants. Some of them are still in the same pots together, but that just makes your job a lot easier using a bucket and bottom watering, because that way you're not spending 1 to 2 hours watering every single little plant, every little pot, making sure that the water doesn't overflow or too much doesn't drain out. And it just saves you a lot of time in general just doing something like that. So you also want to keep in mind the size of the plant, how big it's supposed to get, how big your pot is, and a few other things in general, just like the type of potting media that you're using, and how much light and water you're giving your plant, how much nutrients you're giving your plant, because all those things go hand in hand and help you get a healthier plant. As you see here, I've had these coleus plants in these pots since, I want to say, probably November of last year. and I have probably only watered these about 4 times total since then, because they do really well, especially with the potting media that I put in here, because I mix my own to make sure that the potting soil stays wet longer, so I'm not watering my plants as often as other people do. That way I can go do other things. So these plants are ready for a repot, but you just want to make sure that whenever it's tall like this in a small pot, that you have enough support in there. Sometimes you can get like a skewer or a bamboo skewer or like a wooden stick or a project stick or something and stick it in there and use like a zip tie or something like that to tie it to support it until you're ready to repot it. But plants can grow fairly quickly given the right conditions and depending on how often you water them and feed them. So just remember, keep the size of your pot and the size of the plant at maturity, and make sure that you get in those proportions right so that you don't have a headache a week later of having to repot something that you should have repotted when you bought it or whenever you were doing other plant chores. One more thing to keep in mind, especially whenever you have like 100 different house plants or something, you want to make sure that you keep that room warm and humid enough for all of those plants so that they don't dry out. Because especially if they're tropical plants that need a lot of humidity and moisture and stuff like that. So anything you can use to make that room more humid is helpful. Whether it be the trail water, not that I recommend doing that. I like using a warm mist humidifier, but I would definitely make sure that you use warm or hot water around your plants so that you can increase that humidity around them immediately, like directly around that plant and not just like the whole room. But that's where a warm mist humidifier comes in handy. Like you see here, this is a Polonus brand warm mist humidifier. This usually lasts about a whole 24 hours when it's on the first power, and then it usually lasts about 6 to 12 hours when it's on the second mode, which is the higher mode. So I use this 24/7. Using a warm mist humidifier will definitely increase your chances of having happier and healthier houseplants, and just make sure that you pay attention to what kind of you get, because there are cool mist and warm mist. You want the warm mist because that's going to also help increase the ambient room temperature so that it's not too cold for your plants either. So another thing to keep in mind, and another tip for keeping houseplants, is the type of potting media that you want to use. So there are many different things that you can use as your potting media. There's orchid bark, there's aqua soil, which is aquarium substrate, there's sphagnum moss, perlite, vermiculite, there's even sand. So you can use millions of different things for your potting media. You can use sponges, you can use just plain water, which is hydroponics. But you gotta keep in mind, when you do things like sand or perlite or aqua soil, or, well, not aqua soil, but if you do things that don't have any like organics or nutrients in them, then you have to add those things to the potting media you're using, or add them to the water when you water your plant. And so some of these things here, like this perlite, is basically just like volcanic, I don't even remember what it is, but it's basically something that helps with aeration and drainage. You have vermiculite. It looks kind of like sand, but it's really soft and fine, and it's kind of shiny and reflective, some because of whatever is in there. There's orchid bark, which is just bark, which is natural organic stuff. There is also peat moss, which is really fine and soft. And then there's sphagnum moss, which is basically what peat moss is. It's all ground up. But sphagnum moss is long and stringy and fluffy. So you can add these things and mix them together, or just use different ones to whatever potting media you already have to kind of amend that potting soil to make it a little bit more healthy, and just add different things to it to get through. Just if you need something that has better drainage, you want to add perlite or orchid bark. If you want something that holds more water and moisture, then you want to add peat moss or sphagnum moss. Or if you want just a little bit more aeration in there and to help retain moisture and nutrients, then you can add vermiculite and peat moss. That just all goes hand in hand. You just gotta do your research on that kind of thing and make sure you know what you're doing before you do it. Otherwise, you're gonna have a bit of a headache later on down the road. So the last thing to keep in mind is your lighting. So you can use different types of lights. My favorite lights to use are these tube lights, where they look little singular shop lights, and they already come with the tube and like the cord and everything, so you don't have to assemble anything yourself. They just plug in and turn on. Now there are many different options of grow lights and any kind of light really. You do not need to break the bank to get a light for your plants. The lights that I currently have on my plants, those tube lights above me here, they are only $3 a piece, and I've got 4 of them, and they are very bright, and they do the job that I need them to do for my plants. You do not need to go break the bank spending $20 on one singular shop light, especially if you have several different shelves of plants, because you don't want to be spending all that money on all those lights and not have enough money for other things like pots, potting soil, watering cans, etc. Stuff like that. You get the point. But you can really go find cheap shop lights that work very well and do the job just the same as any other kind of grow light does, just like $400. Now there are different needs for grow lights, which would be vegetative growth, things that help just like germination, things like helping them bloom, stuff like that. But your best bet is to go get some cheap ones from any hardware store and just get the cheap ones, hang them up, plug them in, and turn them on, and you're good to go. You don't need expensive lights for your plants. I've done just fine using cheap lights for about 1.5 years now. I originally did use grow lights, but you don't want to use anything super expensive because there's really no point in it. If you guys enjoyed this video, please be sure to hit like and subscribe down below to help my channel and help me get more views so I can continue to grow my channel and grow my community of plant people. And just remember, I haven't given up on my plants. I've just been doing a lot of stuff to kind of make myself better at what I do. I've been working on growing better plants and growing plants that are a lot healthier. And I've just all in all really been trying to focus on creating the best content for you guys. That's why I haven't been posting anything or uploading any videos, or I haven't even been active on the community tab. So if you guys like this video, be sure to hit like and subscribe down below. And just remember, you can't grow plants if you haven't bought any. Bye!